What's up, Saber World? Welcome to Powell's Power-Ups. I am Stephen Powell, and this is your Proffieboard tutorial. So I am a lightsaber installer. I've been doing this stuff for about 2 years, and I also make tutorial videos like this to help people figure out how to do this kind of stuff. Proffieboard is arguably the best soundboard out there for replica lightsabers. Chances are you have one in a lightsaber, and maybe you want to do some configuration to it, add some sound fonts, play around with blade styles, or maybe you bought one and you're thinking about doing an installation with it and putting it into a replica lightsaber. No matter the case, this is kind of the all-inclusive tutorial on Proffieboard. So I recommend watching this entire thing. Don't skip any steps. I used to call this a quick start tutorial, but there's really no quick way to work with a Proffieboard. There are a lot of steps involved, but I promise you, if you're patient and you do this process and you learn, you do the learning curve, afterwards it's actually pretty simple to do. It's pretty quick and you'll get the hang of it. So I made a tutorial almost 2 years ago. That tutorial has had like over 14,000 likes. I found that to be very impressive. Hopefully that means I helped some people out there with Proffieboard. But some things have changed since then. Right now, the current time of this video, we have operating system 6.7. So a lot of things have changed, so I wanted to make an updated tutorial. So this is the new tutorial. So let's start by saying this. You're going to need a few things. Let's go over what you need. You have to have a laptop. You're going to need a computer, a laptop to do this with. There's not really any way around that. So get you a computer. For this tutorial, I have a computer that uses Windows. You can do the same thing or mostly the same stuff on a MacBook. Generally, I think this process is about the same. I think my previous tutorial actually was on a MacBook, but the process is not too different. So follow along. You can still probably use this if you have a MacBook. Most of the stuff's the same. Moving on, you're going to need a data cable. So there are various USB data cables out there. You're going to need one that has a micro USB side on it. You can find lots of these cables that are used to charge electronics. Those typically aren't the ones that you need. You don't need a charging cable. You need one that handles data. Later on in this video, I'll show you where you can get one, but you can usually just tell by how thick it is. The thicker it is usually means it's higher quality, has more wires in it. Usually it can handle data. So you're going to need a USB cable. And then you're going to need your Proffieboard, right? So you can either have a Proffieboard like this. This one actually has some wires on it. I ripped it out of a lightsaber. I'm going to reinstall it. So I'm actually going to do configuration on it before I do the installation. And that's a great thing about Proffieboard. The power that it needs to do configuration can just come from the USB cable. You don't need it wired up in a hilt yet with a battery or anything like that. You can configure it just like this. You're also going to need the SD card that comes with it. If you look in the Proffieboard manual, which later on in this video I'll show you a link, they show you lots of SD cards and they rate them from good, better, and best. So obviously I would recommend getting one of the SD cards from the best category. But usually when you buy them, it comes with one of those SD cards already from the best category, so you're probably in luck. So you can either have it like this, or you can have it in an already installed lightsaber. So here's a SP Sabers Darkness V3 Kylo saber, my personal favorite, probably the best Kylo saber on the market. This already has a Proffieboard in it, but let's say we wanted to add some sound fonts or change the blade style or add the new effects with the new software that came out, right? You're going to need this tutorial to do that, and you can do that on your lightsaber that's already installed, okay? So sit back and get comfortable. We are going to jump right in this thing. So for this tutorial, to keep beginners in mind, I have removed all programs associated with Proffieboard on my computer, and I'm starting fresh. Let's start by going to my website, powellspowerups.com. So here we are, powellspowerups.com. Welcome to my website. I recommend exploring the tabs on the top there. I have all kinds of information on here. Like if you click services, you can see what kind of services I provide. And portfolio will take you to my Instagram where you can see all kinds of photos and contents regarding installations that I've done. But for this tutorial, we're going to start with education. So let's go there, and then let's scroll down to the Proffieboard section. I have all kinds of important links that we're going to use today in this tutorial. First here we got the manual for Proffieboard, then we have a link to the support forums where you can talk to people about issues you may be having. And I have various other links. I even have a link to a data cable, the proper data cable that you would need that I mentioned earlier in this. But first, we need Profiboard software. That's the first thing we're going to do in this tutorial. So let's click that link and it'll take you to the ProffieOS website where we can get the software. So you'll notice right there in really big bold print, it says download version. That's the software we want. Let's click it. It'll do a quick download onto your computer. Then I'm going to open that file that I downloaded, right click it, and I want to extract the contents onto my computer because it's a compressed file, so we have to extract. So I created a folder on my desktop called Profi. So I'm going to extract to that folder. That way I know where to find it later. So there we go. We have Profiboard software downloaded onto our computer. That was the first and probably easiest step. Now there's a few other steps that we have to do. Next, we have to get Arduino. Arduino is a program that we're going to use to put the software that we just downloaded onto our Proffieboard. So if we go back to the ProffieOS page, scroll down to preparations for Proffieboard, you'll see there a link to Arduino. Let's go ahead and open that in a new window. It'll take us to the Arduino website. We can scroll down and we have a few download options there on the right. I'm going to do the Windows option. That's what kind of computer I have, as mentioned earlier. I'm just going to do the basic Windows download. It'll ask you if you want to donate. You can do that if you want, but I'm not going to, just for the video purposes of this tutorial. I'm going to click download. It's going to begin a download process there. So we're just going to wait for that to get downloaded. While that's downloading, we're going to go ahead and download another program that we're going to need for this process called Zadig. So if you go back to that ProfiOS page, click the link on number 2 where it talks about installing the Arduino plugin, and we're going to scroll down, and then we're going to see a few instructions there about the Arduino plugin, but we're going to go even further and look for where it talks about downloading Zadig. So let's go ahead and right click that, open the link in a new tab. It'll take us to the Zadig website. There's a kind of a picture there of what it looks like, but we're going to scroll down and we are going to click the latest version there, and we are going to download it. Be careful when you click this. You may get a pop-up wanting you to download something else, but that's not Zadig. We don't want that. So we're just going to close this out, and then you'll see Zadig will download, and it's already done. Check that out. So let's go back to Arduino. Look at there. Arduino is done. Let's go ahead and go to where that is downloaded, and we're just going to double click it and let it begin the installation wizard. So it's going to take you through a process. It may ask you for permission to do so. You're just going to click yes and agree to the terms and conditions and all of that stuff. Then we're just going to click next, and install. We're not going to change any of the settings here. We're just going to let it do its installation process. So once it is installed and completed, you can just close that. Then we're going to go back to the Arduino plugin information page. We're going to go to those directions that we scrolled past earlier for Zadig. You can close the Zadig page. You don't need that anymore. So let's look at this. So we're going to open Arduino. We're going to copy and paste this information right here in the grade area. So right click that, copy it. and then we're going to open Arduino. Now you may have noticed there might be a shortcut on your desktop, but I don't want you to go to that one. We're going to click to the Profi folder where we put the Profi operating software earlier. You'll see a bunch of folders, but we're going to scroll down to where we see the little icon there that says ProfiOS. Let's double click that, and that will actually open Arduino. So here we are in Arduino. We can see that we've opened the ProfiOS, the software in Arduino. Let's click File, go to Preferences, and then right here in this Additional Boards Manager, actually I already have it here, but I'm going to delete it. Yours will be empty if this is your first time. You're going to paste that link or that information that we just copied earlier. You're going to paste it right here. So by doing this, we'll be able to get the Arduino, Profi plugin that it was talking about that we needed. So let's go ahead and go back to that here. It says we get a few other things we have to do. We have to open the Boards Manager, from the Tools menu, and we have to install the Profi plugin, right? So let's go do that. So let's click Tools. Let's go down to where it says Board. You're going to go to Boards Manager. We're going to open that. Now you notice this screen may glitch a few times. That's just because it's trying to load everything. As you scroll down, it may glitch a few more times on you, but just keep scrolling all the way down to the bottom. And then I think the third one up is the plugin for Proffieboard. Now mine's already installed. I tried to remove everything, but it looks like I actually left something here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and then I'll reinstall it so that you can see what it should look like for you. It says here at the bottom that it's working on it. So once it's done, I'm going to scroll all the way back down, and now this should look like yours should look. See there, it says we have the option there on the right to install it. So pick the latest plugin with that little drop down bar, which at the time of this video is 3.6, and then I'm going to click install. And at the bottom here, you can see that it's installing the actual plugin. So we're going through those steps to get the Arduino Proffieboard plugin like it was talking about in the Arduino software. Once it has completed, like you see here, we're just going to click Close. And then we have one final step that we're going to do that the instructions talked about. We're going to go ahead and click Tools again. We're going to go down to Boards Manager, but we're going to go down to Proffieboard, and we're going to select version 2 because that's what board I'm using here. So if you have version 3 and this is in the future, then you probably select version 3. A few other things here I want to talk about. The USB type. So you have two versions I recommend. Either use serial web USB, select this if you are able to pull out your SD card from your Saber. If not, then you want to click serial mass storage web USB. And mass storage will give you the option to access your SD card via the USB port. But if you can get out your SD card, then you don't need the mass storage option. And then set everything up like you see here, but it should already be set up that way. So maybe you don't need to mess with anything. So we've done everything here in these steps. Let's go ahead and close that window. Then we'll go back to the ProfiOS page. And as you can see here, we went ahead and went through all the preparations for Proffieboard steps. So that's all done. And then as number 5 says, now you may proceed to installing the software onto your actual board. So it has information below on how to do all that, but we're not going to follow these steps. I'm just going to kind of explain it to you in a way that should be a little easier to understand. Some of the information on these pages can be a little complex. But basically, next step and our final step is to set up our configuration file. So let's go back to my website, click that Education tab, and then go back down to the Proffieboard section. Our configuration file is going to have configuration info about how our Proffieboard's set up. It's going to have blade styles in it to make the effects on our blade happen, and it's going to have sound fonts. So that's actually the first thing we're going to do is pop in our SD card in our computer and get some sound fonts. I'd recommend Kyberphonic fonts. Go to his website. He's probably the best and most popular. He has all kinds of sound fonts that you can buy and download. They're about $10 each. Each of them have a description of the font, and then he has a video where you can play it and listen to how the sound font sounds. So You can purchase them, watch the video, read the description, all that good stuff. Not all of them sound the same, so have some fun there, explore around, see what you can find. So let's get that SD card in our computer. Let's say we've bought some sound fonts. Here's a whole bunch of them that I have. A free one that Kyberphonic has is called Battle. That's the one I'm going to use here in this tutorial. This is what they look like once you download them. It's just a bunch of folders and things like that. But let's go to our SD card. We pop that in the computer, right? First thing you need to do is format it. In other words, delete everything off of it and clean it up. You can right-click the SD card, click Format, and then just leave all your settings there and rename it to whatever you want. I just name it Saber. It's pretty simple. So there's the settings. Leave those as they are. Start the format process. You can leave the little quick format there and then click Start and then click OK. It'll format it, take like a second, and then it is all done. Now we are ready to get the sound fonts put on our SD card. That's one of the things we have to put on there. There's a couple other things we're going to put on there too. So let's go with Battle version 2. Here you'll notice there's multiple versions. We want the one for Proffieboard. When you open it up, you'll see all these different folders. Those are all the different sound files. Like if you open one up, you'll see, let's open up clashes, or maybe, yeah, let's do clashes. Here's all the different clash sounds. So if you click them, you'll notice the clashing is these are the clash sounds. So this is what it looks like. Don't mess with these. They're usually already organized and set up for you when you buy them. You're just going to basically copy and paste this onto your SD card. So let's right click it. Let's copy it, and let's drop it onto our SD card. So once we get that pasted onto the SD card, we are going to rename it because we're going to set up our configuration file soon, and the names of fonts in that configuration file need to match whatever's on the SD card. They have to be perfectly matched. You know, it's case sensitive and everything. So I like to keep it super simple and just name things like this. Like this is Battle version 2, but I'm just going to name it B2. But as far as putting fonts on your SD card, that's pretty much all you do is just copy and paste them onto the SD card and then rename them whatever you want. We'll reconfigure the configuration file to make sure those match up later. But I wanted to show you some other places to get sound fonts that I really like. Kasith Saber Fonts is probably, you know, he's probably just as good as Kyberphonic. They make Canon fonts, which are, you know, from the movies, but there's a couple other people who make fonts that aren't from the movies. They're kind of their own versions of lightsaber sound fonts. Grayscale is a great one. He has tons of free fonts, and then he has paid ones too. Just like Kyberphonic, guys, all these fonts have links with descriptions and videos where you can see what the sound fonts sound like. Another one that I like a whole lot is Blue Force Company. They make some really great sound fonts. So you can just Google them, find the Blue Force Company website, and then same thing, click sound fonts or scroll down, and you can find various fonts they have with all kinds of demonstrations and descriptions that you can read. But we are going to go ahead and move on to the next step. So here in a second, we're going to go back to our website, and we're going to go back to that configurator page link that I was showing you earlier. Let's say you are doing an installation on your Proffieboard, and you need to know, how to wire up your Proffieboard and things like that. This is the page that you would go to for that. So we're going to right-click it, open the link in a new tab. As you scroll down, you'll notice there's a little diagram here telling you what all of these pads are and what they mean on the Proffieboard. So this is important for wiring things up later. And we're also going to need to know where these boot and reset buttons are later too. So keep that in mind. Make a note of that. So as we scroll down, there's this cool little configurator here where you can kind of click these drop down boxes and select, different things for whatever your lightsaber may be. Maybe you have a crystal chamber, maybe you got a cross guard. You would click stuff like you see here. And then you would set up, how many LEDs your blade has in your NeoPixel saber. You would set up how many buttons you had. You can click options over there like Bluetooth, kill switch, OLED screen, stuff like that. Set it up however you're going to do the install. Obviously, if you already have an installed Sabre, you're not going to do any of this stuff. But you might need to. You might need to look at your Proffieboard, see how things are wired up onto it, so you can refer to these diagrams and know that, in case you don't have a copy of your configuration file. But here, this page is important because here you can see a configuration file, kind of a document where you can set things up. There's a couple different sections to it. We're going to go through the different sections step by step. There's a top section that includes all of the kind of, hardware settings that we talked about there by looking at the configurator. You can go here to the config file education link on my website. It'll take you to, a ProffieOS page where you can read about the configuration file. Here you have another version of it, like a mini copy, and then there's some links at the bottom where you can read about the different sections of it. But mainly the top section there has your hardware, middle section has your sound fonts and blade styles like that, and then you have there your blades are set up there in the blade config, and then your button configuration is down there at the bottom. But if you click this link to the top section, okay, this is a really important area here. Here's where you're going to set up a lot of your settings, and there's this cool page where it has all these different hashtag defines. They just call them defines. They're things that you will copy paste and put in that top section, and they do different things. There's different settings. There's kind of descriptions under all of them that tell you, if you put this in your config file, it does this or it does that. So read through here, see what all kind of settings you think you might want on your Proffieboard. You'll notice that as the software, goes on, they add new settings. So there was 3, here's 4, here's 5, and right now we're on ProfiOS 6 and above. So these are the new settings they've added with ProfiOS 6. So check that out, read through that. That's super important. So there's all the information about the top section. Now we're going to go back to that Profi, configurator page and talk about these other sections. This whole middle section here has to do with the name of your fonts, the tracks that the fonts are going to have, and the blade styles. And then underneath here, we have the blade configuration section, which gets set up by the configurator. You don't need to mess with that. And then next we have the button kind of configuration section that also gets set up with the configurator, so you don't really need to mess with that. The next section, that we're really going to focus on in this tutorial is this whole middle section right here. All of this stuff is super important for setting up your fonts and your blade styles and getting the Sabre to have all that, good stuff that you see Proffieboard can do. So to do that, we're going to go back to my website, and we are going to download a copy of a config file that I have here for you. Instead of using the one they have there on the ProfiOS site, I have one that's a little more current, a little more set up, ready to go. So you can click the download file button there. It may open a new window, or I'm just going to open a new window, but you'll see it's just kind of the text. You're going to copy and paste all of this information here, and I have kind of like a template ready here for you guys. So we're just going to copy and paste all of this. So go ahead and select all of this text, and then you're going to copy it. And then we're going to paste it inside one of the config files. Okay, so go back to that Profi folder where we downloaded our software at the very beginning. We're going to go into the software, and we're going to open the folder that says config. There's all kinds of configuration files in here. They're old and outdated ones. I wouldn't recommend any of them, but we need one of them to paste all of that information that we just copied into because of the type of files that they are. They're H files. So let's just pick one, any old one. You're going to right click it, and we're going to rename it to make it our own. So I'm going to call it my Sabre_config is what I like to use to, recognize what my config file is. I know this is my Sabre's configuration, so that's what I name it. So let's go ahead and open this one up. I think here on Windows it'll open up as a in WordPad, I think is what it is. Yeah, or Notepad. Notepad is what you want to use in Windows. So just go ahead and adjust the screen, get it comfortable. You're going to select all that text, delete it, and then we are going to paste all of that config information that we copied from my website, and there we have it. It's all there. So you'll notice in the top section, I already have a lot of really, normal and usual settings that you'll see set up for you. I have the blades in there, number of buttons. I have the volume set up, the clash sensitivity set up. I have idle time off set up. I have a few other things in there set up. Let me go ahead and get this like I want it. I got some gesture controls in there, the force push length. A lot of these are special settings that we get from the second section here, which tells us what buttons we're going to use. So this is a really important part of our configuration file. So we have down here the hardware kind of, and the number of buttons and what pads are using, but this section here talks about what prop file we're going to use, and the prop files can be found back in the ProfiOS. There's the config file we were just in, but we're going to go down into props, and these prop files tell us, or kind of like how our buttons, make our saber function. There's a few different ones, but the most popular one that we're going to use is FET263s. And if you click and open this up, don't change anything in here, by the way. Leave everything you see in here alone. You don't want to edit this at all. You're just looking inside of it. But you'll see here, these are the instructions on how to operate your lightsaber. If you use this prop file, your lightsaber will work like this. Instructions for if the blade is off or on. If you scroll down, there's more information about like how battle mode works and stuff like that. So you can copy all this stuff and paste it and print it if you want. There's even controls for, if you have a one-button saber, so there's 2-button at the top, and this is all the one-button controls right here, or the instructions, in other words. But if you keep scrolling down, there are the defines that I were telling you about that I added. So these are the optional defines that are special to this prop file. I added them to the configuration to that top section. These are those settings. So just like we saw with that first Profi page, there was descriptions of what the settings did or what the defines did. Here are descriptions with what these do. So these are kind of like extra and bonus ones. So FET263, that's his prop file name, so that's what I'm using. Whatever one you use, you need to paste it right there. They need to match. Saber FET263, Saber FET263 buttons. See how they match? So if you want to use the SA22C, then that is what needs to be pasted right there. The text needs to match exactly. So as we move forward to edit the middle section of our configuration file, I want to point out that this section starts and ends with a bracket. So it starts with a bracket, it ends with a bracket and a semicolon. Okay, the whole section does, just one. But then each of the presets in the middle, or your fonts, is going to start and end with its own bracket and a comma. So keep that in mind. Those always need to be there. So the first part of a preset is the name of the font. As you see, the name of the font goes here. We put the Battle version 2 on ours earlier, so I'm just going to put B2. And then we have another section here. Font name goes here, B2. This selects, what track I'm going to start with, right? So here I'm going to put what track I want this font to play, like the background track in the background. So let's actually go set that up. What we need to look at is make sure our font, right, has a folder in it named tracks. This one actually does not. Some of them might not, because it used to not work this way, but things have changed and it's now updated. So we need a folder in here with tracks in it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go to one of my other folders where I know that I have tracks. I'm going to pick one that I want, like a basic Star Wars sound or something like that. I'm going to copy it. Then I'm going to go back to my sound font on my SD card, which we named Saber. There it is, B2. I'm going to create a folder in here named Tracks, since there wasn't one. All lowercase. The case-sensitive stuff matters, so make sure you keep an eye on stuff like that. So I'm just going to name it Tracks. And then that actual track, wave file that I want as my background theme that I copied, I'm going to paste it right here. Now, I typically like to name the tracks the same as the font, just so I can keep up with it, make it easy in the config file. So I'm going to name it B2. That way I know it's the, Battle version 2 track. But you can name it whatever you want. You could name it Star Wars theme, or you could name it 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter. But whatever you name it here needs to match what you put in the config file. So right here in my template, starting track goes here. We're going to change that to B2. And remember, you're only changing the text. Don't mess with any of the periods, none of the commas, don't mess with any of the backslashes. But the top line there, we've got set up the name of the font and the track that font's going to have. The second line is our blade style. So next in the tutorial, I'm going to show you where to get blade styles from. Let's go back to my website. You can close out these other links here. We don't need them anymore. We're going to go to the link for the blade style library. This is going to take us to FET263's page. So let's give a shout out to FET263. His name is actually Fernando. He sets up all this stuff for us guys for free. So it's pretty cool that he does that. So I'd like to give a shout out to him. Thank you, Fernando, for putting all of your hard work and effort and probably a countless amount of hours into building this library for us. But he has all kinds of cool information here. He has a video tutorial about his blade style library and how to use it. He even has a sample config of his own over there on the side. Lots of other good information you can read. But we're just going to click agree on that stuff and continue into the blade style library. So here it is. He has videos up there about the different phases and new things he's adding to it, but we're going to go down and look at the blade styles. So here we have canon or standard styles, and as you scroll down, you'll see on the left there we got video showing what the blade styles look like, and on the right we have descriptions about what they are. So let's go ahead and pick just a simple one here. Here's the static flicker blade style. There are various types of flickers. Like I said, you can click these videos and look at them and see what they're like. But we're going to start by selecting our style options. So like I said, you can read through that information there if you want. But I'm going to click this first drop down. I'm going to just pick a basic, maybe like a random flicker, the single color 50%. That looks good. Let's choose that one. So there's different versions different options you can choose here. And I'm not going to go into picking extra options or anything like that. I'm just going to keep it default, and I'm going to set up main blade first. So let's click main blade. But if you had side blades like a cross guard or a crystal chamber, you could get styles for that by clicking these buttons down here. But we're just pretending we have a single bladed lightsaber. So maybe we can talk about crystal chamber. Let's go back to the configurator. Let's say your saber has a crystal chamber, or let's say it has a cross guard or something like that. And your configurator here is where you would change those kinds of settings. So let's just say this has a crystal chamber, right? Let's say it has one LED in the crystal chamber. We'll just leave that at 1. And what you'll notice is it's going to change your wiring diagram. So we have the main blade there, and this would be the crystal chamber right here. So it kind of added a second strip there. You can see the second data line that it added if we did that. So here it talks about, the different pads and what they are. So you can use this. Let's say your saber's already installed. You can look at this stuff and just kind of eyeball it, and you can know how your installer wired up your Proffieboard, instead of waiting around to ask them. But we'll notice we go down to this blade config section. That was our main blade right here with the 144 LEDs, but it added a second line, right? That is the blade style for our the blade configuration for our crystal chamber. It added a second line. See how it did that? So if you need to change the number of LEDs or something like that, that's where you would do so. But the first line here, okay, your blade style goes here. That coordinates with our main blade. Okay, so this is the main blade style goes here. But if we had a crystal chamber, you would actually add a second, kind of to match the blade configuration. So here would be the second line would be your crystal chamber blade style would go right here. Okay, see how that works? So I'm going to go ahead and delete this out now, but I just kind of wanted to show you. whatever your blade configuration is set up to be, the styles here in the middle section should match. However, the lines, the number of lines. But let's go back and let's just set up our main blade. When you click main blade, you have a cool animation there at the top. You can actually operate this. So as you change settings in this, you can click the buttons here and like see your saber, in operation of what it's going to be like. We got lightning block button, blast button, stuff like that. But let's scroll down and play with settings. I think right here is where we have our ignition effect. We can adjust the timing on that. We can, there's all kinds of settings here. I just want a basic spark tip extension effect for when I power it on. I can test that by clicking the power button. See the spark? If you want to slow it down to see things, maybe it's happening too fast, change the timing on it. Test it out. See what it's going to look like. This is your chance to do all your testing to see what exactly you want your blade style to look like for whatever font you're using. So maybe you want a center out style, maybe you want it to expand like that. There's several other ones, but I'm just going to keep it basic. Go with the spark tip, and I like it to be fast, so I'm setting that timing there to 200 milliseconds. There's other kinds of settings in here that you can do too. There's like the clashing, the different versions, responsive clash is what I'm going to do. I can pick the location on the blade of where that happens. I click the button there to kind of test out where it's happening and how it looks. So again, this is just your chance to play around with styles, and you're kind of setting up exactly how you want it to be. This is customizing for you. So I'm going to continue to scroll down here and just play with a few settings and add some things to it. Maybe I want a sparking stab, so I'll click the stab button, see what that looks like. Change the position on it, see where I want it to be. I like it to be at the tip. Then I can set up my blasters. Maybe I want it to be random. There's different kinds of blaster styles here. Maybe I want it to be a fade, just a blast fade with a sound base. Here we have force effects or force boost. There's all kinds. I like to use this force rage unstable right here because I like to trigger quotes and then let it do, a force pulse looking thing like this while the quote plays. So I'll change the timing on that. It's set to default at 30 seconds, which is way too long. I like 3 seconds. It usually goes really great with the quotes that are about that long, anywhere from 2 to 3 seconds. There's a base flare emitters. You can set that cool stuff up if you want. Maybe you want some, flare on the emitter. Then there's a feature for battery level. You can check your battery level with the blade, like while it's off. So maybe I want to add that feature to my blade style. So I power it off, Then I'll click check battery level, and the animation kind of shows us what that is going to look like once we get it set up. But whatever you do, at the end, you're going to click get style code. Okay. Again, let's give a shout out to Fet263 for setting this up. You can support his library by clicking here. Send the guy some money. I've paid him for a few beers a couple of times just because I know he works hard. But we're going to click get style code, and then you can see everything is copied. So it copies whenever you click that button. And then we're going to go back to where it says main blade style goes here, and we are going to paste. Control V, or you can right click and click paste. But it's going to look huge when you do this. There's going to be all kinds of text and information, but don't panic. Just remember how everything starts and ends with the brackets and the commas. So let's paste it right here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this now, and then bam, there it is. Tons of text. Looks like the Matrix. Kind of scary, but don't worry. Let's just scroll up and take a look at it, okay? Remember, we knew that it started with this top line here that has our font and font name. Then the blade style starts. It adds a copyright, right, for Fet263 stuff. I recommend leaving that there. I know he wants that. I think it's appropriate we give him credit for these blade styles, so leave that in your config. And then this part here says what all is in your config, kind of a summary for your blade style, and then here is all the blade style, all of that code, and then it should end with 1 comma. So I notice I accidentally have a second comma here. I'm going to delete that. let's see here, backspace. And then after that single comma, you can name the style. So all that code, we don't even know what it is by looking at it. I guess we can read the summary above it, but I like to put a short name here of what exactly it is to me. So to me, this is just a red blade, you know, or a red, just a red blade. Maybe we can call it red normal blade, right? Call it whatever you want, but this is where that information goes. Normal red blade, how about that? And then, like I said, it ends with the bracket and the comma. So now we've successfully set up one preset. We have one font on there, but let's say we have multiple fonts, right? So maybe we have more than one. So what we're going to do is, if we want to keep adding, we're going to add it in the space below this one. So we're going to copy this whole preset, okay? We're going to copy it, and then we're going to enter down a few times, create some space right here. It doesn't matter how much space you have, and then you're going to paste, okay? Let's go ahead and delete this blade style. So leave the comma there. We need that, but everything else we can delete in the blade style, okay? We'll leave the title name there. But this is where we would begin to set up multiple presets if we have multiple fonts. So again, your blade style goes here, you know, and then this would be the name of the next font would go right here. And then, you know, the name of that track would go there where it says, you know, like B2, next font name. So this would be next font name, also goes here. And then the name of that track. So the next, or let's see, what would we put here? That font's track name. Yeah, like that. So that's how it works. And then you just copy this, right? Maybe we have a whole bunch of fonts, enter down, paste it a whole bunch, and then just paste it as many times as you need, and then you have little templates to set up additional fonts. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to do the one. So remember, make sure you don't delete that comma there like that. You know, be careful. Remember what all of these brackets, all of these semicolons and commas are important. Make sure they stay there. Don't delete any of it. Remember, the middle section, the preset section, should start with a bracket and end with a bracket, semicolon, and each preset should start with a bracket and end with a bracket and a comma, like right here. So check these things as you go. But I think that's pretty much it. We pretty much have the configuration file set up just like we want it. We've set up the top section, the config, we've done the names and all that. But there's one more thing I want to point out is this right here. It says common, right? Maybe you saw that earlier and wondered what that was, but I'm going to show you what common is. So remember we added the battery level effect? Well, that actually talks. It has audio stuff to it. So we're going to actually add a common folder to our SD card there with our sound font, and I'll show you where to get it. We're going to go back to Fet263's website, click his little menu there, and we're going to go down to, let's see, the OS 6 controls, or basically the information about his prop file. And we're going to scroll down here and click this button that says voice prompts. See, like here, right here, this common. So what common is a folder that we're going to download that has all of these voice prompts and audio files in it. It's a voice pack. So here you see there's multiple languages, voice packs for OS, ProfiOS, multiple languages. Then there's little speakers you can click and listen to the different variants and see how they sound. When you find one you want, you click the little download button and we're going to download that folder. So I picked, the English A as an example. We're downloading it now. Once it's finished, I'm going to need to extract its contents because we can see that it is a compressed file or a zip file. So once it's finished, let's right-click the folder, go to the download, and let's extract the contents. I'm actually going to put it into that Profi OS folder that we put our Profi software into at the beginning. So that's the folder I'm going to select. It won't hurt if we drop it into that one we created on our desktop at the beginning. So I'm going to click extract all. I'm going to browse. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to find that ProfiOS folder. Actually, it's right here. So I'm going to select that folder, or the one that called Profi. Yeah, not the ProfiOS, but just the Profi. I'm going to extract its contents. Then I can go to that folder on my desktop. Go ahead and close this stuff out. We don't need any of this anymore. Minimize this. Close this. Don't close your config file, just minimize it. We're not done with it yet. So there's the Profi folder that I extracted that common voice pack into. So let's open it. Here you can see it says common, right? Inside of it is all of those extra audio files. So if you click these, you'll hear it say 10%, 20%, all these weird different things, like all kinds of sounds. We need to copy this common folder and we need to paste it onto our SD card. So in addition to all of our sound fonts, we're going to have this common folder on our SD card as well. All right, there we go. We got the common file on the SD card and we got the sound font on there. So you should have all your sound fonts and the common folder. So lastly, we're going to open up our config file again. We're gonna, it still should be open, just maximize it, look at it, make sure everything is how you want it. We're finished with this one. Excuse me. So we're gonna close and save this, okay? And then we're gonna put a copy of it on our SD card as well. Now it doesn't actually function that way. Your Proffieboard does not read it off of the SD card. I just put a copy of it on there for my clients, so that they have kind of a template or a base or something to start with in case they want to do customizing of their own. So I'm going to go get a copy of it, right? And remember, we edited it in our Profi folder. So we're going to go find on our desktop the Profi folder. We're going to go to the ProfiOS software. We're going to find the config folder. And then we're going to find my Sabre config was the one that we edited. So we're going to copy it. And we're going to paste it onto the SD card. So you should have three things: your fonts, the common folder, and a copy of your SD card. It's just good to have a copy to work with and kind of send it around with your Sabre. So even if you didn't get one from me, you might be able, if you didn't get a Sabre from me, let's say you got a Sabre from someone else, you might be able to find a copy of your config file on there. But if not, just use mine. It's probably better anyway. So we're going to eject that SD card and we're going to put it into our Proffieboard. And now we're going to use that data cable. We're going to plug up our Proffieboard into the computer. So we got our config file done. Now we are ready to put the operating system onto our Proffieboard. To do that, use your USB data cable and plug it up to the Proffieboard. Make sure your SD card is already in there. I think we said that, but let's put the SD card in, plug it up with our USB cable. Then remember these two buttons here we talked about earlier? I said to make note of the boot and the reset. You're going to hold down the boot button, and while you're holding that down, you'll click the reset button. You should hear your computer make a ding noise, and that would indicate we put the Proffieboard in bootloader mode. We're going to open up the Zadig program that we downloaded earlier so that we can install the proper driver onto the Proffieboard so we can use an Arduino to get the the software on the Proffieboard. So let's open Zadig. You're going to click the Options tab, list all devices. You want to do that. And then we're going to click this drop down, find STM32 bootloader, click that. And then we are going to, it says the current driver here, this STT, bunch of stuff, but we want it to be this window USB driver, which is already selected. So we're going to make it this one. So we're going to click replace driver. This process can take a few minutes, so just be patient and let it do that. So the driver was installed successfully, so we can go ahead and close that. We can close Zadig. Now let's open up Arduino. Remember, we're going to do this from the Profi folder. We're going to go into the Profi operating system folder. We're going to scroll down to find ProffieOS with a little Arduino icon. We're going to double click that to open the Profi operating system in Arduino. We're almost done, guys. Hang in there. Just a couple more steps. So once we get that open, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to scroll down here. We're going to find the line that says, what config file we're going to upload onto, that we're going to use to upload onto the Proffieboard. So we're going to do this first one here. We're going to backspace and get out these slashes. And then we're going to see it says your config file name here. Remember, we named ours mysaber config. So we're going to put it right here, mysaber underscore config. Leave the .h, you need that, and you need the config slash at the beginning. Don't change any of that. So you, let's see. You'll notice the port here. Okay, normally your Proffieboard will show up here, but when we use Zadig, it kind of ghosts it. That's fine. We're going to click this arrow that says upload. Then you'll notice it is compiling the sketch. So right now, Arduino is reading through your config file, making sure it all looks good, that there are no errors. If you have any errors, if anything goes wrong, it's going to pop up in that black space, right here at the bottom. You may get some things like this saying you need to update stuff. Just close that. But like I said, you'll get errors if you have any. It'll pop up in this black section down here, but ours is, the green status bar there looks good so far. Once it's done, it will automatically begin, uploading the software using the config file onto the Proffieboard. So see here, everything looks successful. The download has begun. Now, you may notice, let's say you do this and you maybe get an error message that says something about how the no such file is found, like maybe it's saying you can't find your config file. That's an error that's pretty common. If that happens, all you have to do is just close all this, restart your computer, and then open it back up and then upload again, and it will work. I've noticed it does that sometimes. But this little section right here, if you scroll up, it tells you, how much percent of space you're using on the Proffieboard and what the maximum is. The more blade styles you add onto the config file, the more you upload, the more room you take up. We only took up 62% with that one style. But so I noticed you can't have infinite number of presets and stuff, but this is done now. See, we hit 100%. It says it's done. So now we can just take the Proffieboard, we can unplug it, unplug the micro USB cable, and then that's it. Your Proffieboard is now ready to go. If you're doing an install, you can do the install, and then you'll notice here now it actually shows up on your computer. So if you plug it back into your computer later on and you select this, and it does like this countdown when you try to upload all the way from like 10 to 1 or 1 to 10 or something, and it doesn't work, then in that case you would need to reinstall the driver like we did using Zadig. If this stuff doesn't work, down here it would do like a countdown. That would mean it's having trouble finding the Proffieboard. So like I said, use Zadig again to reinstall the drivers if the Proffieboard port isn't working, and it'll be ghosted again like it was at the beginning. But yeah, you need to make sure this driver is on it. So that's pretty much it, guys. You are a Proffieboard installation master now. Congratulations, you've completed this tutorial. Anything you want to change on your Proffieboard, you go into that config file, you change names of fonts, you change blade styles, things like that, and change settings if you need to, but you'll always use that config file as kind of the directive, for how the software gets put on your Proffieboard. But that is it.